with John Binkley with the Ward Cove Dock Group, and for those of people mostly here in Ketchikan that don't know who you are, John, tell us a little bit about your history.
Well, I was born and raised in Fairbanks. My grandparents actually came to Wrangell in southeast Alaska in the early 1900s, 1917. My grandfather was a riverboat pilot, piloted riverboats all over Alaska, settled in Wrangell, running on the Stikine River, between Wrangell and Telegraph Creek, hauling freight and supplies up there. That's where my dad was born in 1920. Then in late 30s, early 40s, he left Wrangell to go up to the University of Alaska in Fairbanks. Met my mom there, started running riverboats on the Yukon and the Tanana rivers in the summertime as he was going to school, and ended up marrying my mom and starting a tug and barge business on the Yukon River out of Fairbanks, and then eventually it turned into a tourism business in 1950, and did tugs and barges and tourism for a bit of time, and then eventually sold the tug business, stuck strictly with tourism, and that's the business I grew up in Fairbanks. Stern wheel riverboats that we operate and still do now through 5 generations on the rivers of Alaska.
And you have wife, kids?
Got a wonderful wife of almost 43 years now. Have 4 adult children and 10 grandchildren.
All right. Well, that's. So, John, tell us a little bit. How do you know the Spokeleys, and how did you end up in this arrangement here?
Well, I've known the Spokeleys for quite a while. Andrew went to the University of Alaska up in Fairbanks, and he was familiar with our operation there, our tour operations there. So on one of my trips through Ketchikan, he and his dad, Dave, contacted me and wanted to run me out and see the property out here at the mill. And so we came out and took a look at it, and one of the ideas that they had many ideas, but one was to have a cruise ship dock here in Ward Cove. So we talked about that and how we might make that happen. And
so, John, we're down here where the pier is going to be developed. You can describe this a little bit, how it's going to go.
Yeah, you can see out where the barges are. That's about where the floating portion of the dock will be, about midships on where the ships will be when they're docked. And then there'll be a transition ramp. The floating portion goes up and down, of course, with the tide. Then it transitions up to the mooring dolphins that will come up to where you see these 2 angular galvanized pieces. And then this is called the trestle span that comes in and lands ashore. So visitors will get off about where that orange barge is, and then they'll walk up the transition span, across the mooring dolphins, and across the transfer trestle.
Will you be able to drive a vehicle down there? Obviously, yeah. So,
yeah. And we'll have little electric carts too for people that have mobility issues.
Well, I'm thinking about there's substantial investment there. I've heard numbers thrown around. Do you care to say how much is being invested generally for the property, or could you tell us, hey, we're putting $10 million into this, $5 million in here? Is that the number?
The only number we've really released is about $50 million overall, both the uplands and the marine portion.
And that number is spread over how many years?
That will be expended by the time we're open, which hopefully will be sometime this summer.
Substantial.
Yeah. And it'll go on the tax rolls, and we pay property taxes on that amount.
In your arrangement with Spokeleys, Godspeed, and partnership, you're not ownership in the property, or
correct?
We support.
We're partners in a group called Ward Cove Dock Group, and then that group leases the property from the Spokeleys.
So, just briefly, if you were to just describe the improvements? You have the dock.
Yep.
Obviously, where the ships will tie up. I understand this would be called the warehouse number 1 originally.
Yep.
The finishing room, for those familiar, was behind there. Those are the only 2 real remaining. There's a few.
The machine room, they call it, the big one that goes longitudinally about 480 feet
so
long.
These will be improved in in what way?
Well, we're going to be improving on the inside, the interior. First, we'll fix up the outside as well, repair all the brick, be replacing all the glass. We'll put new doors inside of it. And then this really, where you see this plywood opening, will be the main entrance. There'll be a canopy over that. And that's where people, when they get off the ship instead of like you would be used to in downtown Ketchikan where they get right on the bus. Instead, they go inside the building. They go through the building, and then all the motor coaches are on the far side of the building.
So how did you go about choosing, these particular set of contractors? You have the pile driver out here is out of Anchorage. That's
Turnagain.
You have Pool involved in some of the uplands work.
Right.
You have a contractor out of, I believe, Juneau.
Yep, Alaska Commercial Contractors, and subs from here.
And then
Ketchikan.
I was curious about, we have a shipyard here that builds things that float, but we're not going to build this particular. What explain some of these decisions?
Well, Turnagain Marine is out of Anchorage, and they've just completed a very similar dock structure in Hoonah. So they are what's called a design build firm. So they do all the design work, all the engineering work, and all the construction, and give you one fixed price for everything, and they stick to that price.
And that dock, the floating portion was built in Anchorage, Seattle?
They're having it built, the contractor's having it built in Anacortes, Washington.
Okay.
And it should be arriving April 6th.
Okay.
So it's a very fast timeline and a very quick schedule. And this company had just built one very similar to that for Hoonah, the project in Hoonah, and they just went right on the heels of that and built a second one right in sync with that.
And then what about these upland, like the carpenters, the guys out of Juneau?
A lot of the carpenters are local.
I do know that. My nephew's working up here.
Okay, well, that's good. Alaska Commercial Contractors.
You know him? I mean, what's the...
Well, they were the ones that, and they're still working in Hoonah. So they did are currently doing the work in Hoonah, did the original work in Hoonah as well. So they're familiar with the cruise ship terminal.
Sure.
They're very competent contractors, and that was really one of the big criteria that we used as a general contractor. Right in this area is where the railroad boxcars would come rolling in. Then they would load with forklifts all the pulp product into the boxcars. We've purchased several boxcars from the Canadian National. We'll be bringing them in here. There'll be full-on size regular boxcars in here. Inside the boxcars will be the restrooms and the kitchen facilities for the food and beverage. So people will be able to visually see what it was like here when at the glory of the pulp mill, when they were loading pulp in the boxcars here, and they'll walk into the Tongass National Forest. We've got 300 live trees that we have budgeted that we'll have, many of which will be right in here. So as they walk in, they won't see the warehouse. They'll walk into really a wall of trees and rocks, and they'll walk through that. So this is where the visitors will walk out. So the rail cars we'll have tracks that come right out through here. This will be glass, all glass. So the rail cars, when you walk in, you'll see them going right out the door. And so then right along here, motor coaches will come in here. They'll come on down here, and then this is where they'll pick up their passengers out.
I understand there's some contention about the transfer to downtown. Where does that stand? The people that don't want to go on a tour, that want to go to see the actual Ketchikan, what's going to happen, or where does that stand?
I see a red light. So.
Well, it's beeping out just a little out.
Okay, gotcha.
So where we stand with the busing to downtown?
So what we're going to have is shuttle buses, so people can get on motor coaches if they want, go downtown, do shopping, see the historic aspect of downtown Ketchikan. They'll be able to get on here and head downtown, get off, spend as much time as they want, get on a shuttle bus coming back out in time to catch the ship before it departs, get off right here, through the building, and back on the ship.
So as I'm watching him dig here, it occurs to me, what have been some of the challenges? You're dealing with a somewhat encumbered site from its historical legacy as the pulp mill. It had a consent decree. Talk to some of those challenges.
Of course, the pulp mill operated here for almost 50 years, and when they shut the pulp mill down, both the EPA and the state DEC did tremendous amount of remediation. They spent tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to clean up the site, both on the marine side and on the land side. And so as a result, there was a tremendous amount of work that was done in cleaning up any pollution that was here, and then also documenting exactly what was here. And then as a result of that, there's what's called institutional controls. So there's strict controls over what we can do and can't do with the material and on the site. And so we work closely with the EPA and DEC.
Are there some of those that you've run up against? Like I see him digging. I know there was something about
Yeah.
being able to dig. Well,
Yeah, exactly.
what
So
is-
you have to have a soil characterization plan. So you have to characterize the different soils that were native and that were here. And anytime you rip up an old slab, because they did extensive testing and remediation, but in some areas where there were concrete slabs and buildings, they didn't do testing under those buildings.
Oh.
So if there's an area where we're taking up an old slab, for example, then when we do that, we have to do testing to make sure there are no constituents that are concerned. And then if there are, then we have to deal with those appropriately.
what is the structure of who will operate the port? Who's going to manage it on a daily basis? Is there a set management team already in place?
Yeah, there's Ward Cove Dock Group is the
Right.
entity that will be running the operation. I'm the president of Ward Cove Dock Group. Shauna Lee is our director of port operations, so she will really be the one that manages all of the operations.
And how many employees would you say, without the uplands, would you say that Ward Cove Dock Group is going to employ?
Yeah, we're estimating at this point between 20 and 30 employees. We'll see as we evolve, and of course we're all concerned right now about the season itself and what's going to happen, but
So
that's what we're anticipating.
Would you guys be offering other service? Now when a ship lands in the port of Ketchikan, southeast of Stevedoring, has a ship agent,
Yeah.
these type of things, they might offer them services. Other services you may offer, septic, water, medical, these kind of things. Are any of these other services part of the port?
There's a multitude of services that the ships require when they come in, and we will be utilizing traditional means for those. Southeast Stevedoring will
still
do
be the
all the
ship
stevedoring work.
Okay.
Cruise Line Agencies of Alaska will do all the agent work, ship agent work. Many of those same entities that do the work downtown in Ketchikan will just come out here and do the work. CBP will come out here, the Coast Guard will be involved.
Sure.
All the same entities.
And of course, they have contracts with the IBLW that does
Exactly.
the tying up of the ship.
Yeah.
So this is just kind of fun note.
Yeah.
You've developed lots of things. Obviously, you've been involved in big projects. You got so all around the state. Tell me, what about this is interesting or different than what you've done before?
Oh, let me just think about that for a second. Well, the thing about this project, it's a large project. A $50 million project is big. You know, I'm a riverboat pilot and helicopter pilot, and I've built my own cabins and a lot of other projects, but the scale of this is much, much larger. And another really challenging part too is the technical aspect on the marine side. It's very deep in Ward Cove, 127 feet deep at some of the piling at low water. And so we have to have massive, large pilings. The biggest pilings are 4 feet in diameter, 1 inch thick walls, and 180 feet long. And they have to get those piling down at the right angle into sloping bedrock, get them penetrated deep into those, drill into the rock, put in rebar, concrete coming out. All that is very technical and very demanding, and it's exciting, it's fun. Great people to work with.
As far as pucker factors, from being owning aircraft to flying in the bush to this, where do you rate this in the pucker factor?
Well, it's not like flying, you know. That's a real pucker factor. Nothing's gonna hurt you physically. Yeah, nothing's gonna kill you if things go wrong here. But it's a big investment, and particularly this time of uncertainty with the cruise industry too.
What is the risk? Is there a risk? I mean,
there is a risk. Yeah, there's a risk.
Obviously, there is.
Yeah. So, what can you do?
Yeah.
You only deal with the things that you can make a difference on, and the rest of it, whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
All right. Thanks a lot, John.
Thank you, Larry.
So to kind of wrap up this tour of the Ward Cove site, there's a couple things that happen, and when you do these kind of interviews, I had other questions that didn't get answered, didn't propose. But one of the things that I had a hard time and I never got a good, clear answer to was what is the nature of the arrangement between NCL, Norwegian Cruise Line, and Global Port, Ward Cove Dock Group. And one of them is, how is it arranged? Does Ward Cove give or NCL give the group some money? They use that money for future berthing. I assume it's probably a contractual arrangement where they agree to tie up and pay a certain amount every year, so then private or bank money can be used to develop the port. That was not clarified. The other thing that I asked off camera was, hey, how did you guys get an Army Corps permit in 6 to 8 months when most of us or other people, even in small developments, have taken years to get? So they seem to think that was a long time, this 6 months, so it wasn't clear. And that's an encumbered body of water. They own the tidelands, but it's still managed by the Army Corps. There was I asked the question that didn't get answered, was what's this conflict with the city of Ketchikan? Well, as they bring people downtown and they want to shuttle them down there and drop them off, they're going to drop them off at city-owned locations, and they got to pay for that. A private entity bringing people in can't drop them off on the public street anywhere. So at the current conflict, I understand, is the city wants $4 a head to bring those people downtown, and that may include even the people that don't come downtown. They just want a blanket amount. That's what they do with folks that anchor out in the harbor. So this would be protect some of the interest of the city, and that was not clarified or not discussed. And of course, now it's been 4 or 5 days since I actually talked with John, and the dynamics of the upcoming season are really changing, and it's looking more and more gloomy by the day. I would have liked to have explored that a little bit, and how this may threaten the development of the port, threaten their finances, and so forth. I doubt that he would have probably put a dollar value on that, but at least it would have been a question, because as we've explored earlier, people are really nervous around town. So thanks for watching, and hope things get better.